All right, everybody. This news on Diddy and his trial just keeps coming, keeps coming. And the jury right now has a partial verdict. Hasn't been given to the judge. They just been informed that they have reached a partial verdict. That's not enough yet. They still have to figure some things out. It's looking like they're going to have it before the 4th of July because court is closed on Friday, everywhere around the United States. So you only have 48 more hours to get this verdict out. And so this is a live report from NBC.com, and the jury has been told to keep deliberating after a partial verdict in the Diddy trial. I'm gonna let you guys hear the news reporter down here. And no, this is not NBC.com. This is BBC.com. My fault. You all can see the website up there, BBC.com. Now let me let you guys hear the anchor who's doing the live reporting. Here we go.
A partial verdict had been reached. Four of the charges for sex trafficking and for the transportation for prostitution charges, the jury has reached a verdict. The verdict that they are struggling with, it appears, is the first one. This is the racketeering conspiracy, arguably the most complicated charge that Sean Diddy Combs is facing. This is a charge that's often used to go after the mob, the mafia, but like the mob. The prosecution argued that the reason they say Sean Diddy Combs was able to carry out sex trafficking of the two women at the centre of this case was because he used his enterprise, his business, that it was a criminal enterprise in which he involved.
Now that part about criminal enterprise, and I've only known Puffy to have Bad Boy Records and Sean John and Ciroc. He also has some tequila, and the prosecution is trying to, I guess, say he used that as a front to run some type of criminal enterprise. And if that's the case, I think why they're having a hard time trying to prove the racketeering, which I think is the one that carries the most time, is because they haven't really proven that it's a criminal enterprise. And like she said, they use that charge to go after mafia members, but who else is involved? How do you run a criminal enterprise by yourself? So I can see why the jurors would struggle with that. Let's continue.
His network of employees to carry out the so-called freak-offs, these long sordid sex events in which he hired male escorts to have sex with his girlfriends, which lasted for hours, which the women who brought the case against him said that they were forced into doing. Now, the defence argues that this was all consensual. They don't deny that Sean Combs has an extreme sex life, but they have always said in their defence this was a private matter, this was his private life, and the courtroom really opened a curtain to that, and it was overreach by the government. It was overzealous prosecutors going after him. So that is the complicated charge, and if he's convicted on that, he could face life in jail. But clearly the jurors are struggling to reach a verdict on that. And as I say, the other verdicts they've reached, we're not likely to know what they are until they've reached a verdict on the first count.
Okay, so there you all have it there. So he faces life in prison if convicted on the racketeering charge, and they're struggling with that now. I'm guessing it has to be unanimous on that charge. I don't think it can be some say yes, some say no, and then facing up to life in prison. I don't think he's going to get a guilty on the racketeering just because I don't. They're saying that from what she's saying, he used the employees of Bad Boy, so everybody was just criminal one, criminal two, and then I guess they would get convicted next. But no one else is on trial from any of the businesses. It's just him and only him. Nobody from the record label. I don't get that part. So I don't think he's going to get life in prison because I don't think they can get a clear guilty verdict on the racketeering. These other four of the five counts, which they have reached a verdict, that's why it's partial. We'll see about that. He may get some time on there, but not like a very long time where it would be he'd be 80 something getting out. He's 56 now. He was born in 1969. So, judge has told jurors to continue deliberating after they reached a partial verdict for the trial. And like he said, we got a verdict on 4 to 5 counts. The fifth count, the racketeering, that's the hardest to prove. And right now, like I'm looking at it, who's the rest of this mafia that Diddy is operating with to say he's got a criminal enterprise from what the government is arguing, the feds. Now, court is over for today as I make this video, but they'll be back tomorrow on Wednesday, July 2nd, trying to get a verdict by Thursday or earlier. So we got another 48 hours. Like I said, I think we will see one before Friday, the 4th of July, instead of waiting until next Monday, July 7th. Yeah, that's July 7th. Yeah, it's the fifth Saturday, sixth Sunday. So yeah, I really think it'll be fireworks before the 4th of July with this verdict. I don't think he's going to get convicted on the racketeering, which he could face up to life in prison. I just don't think that. And this is coming from BBC.com. They're reporting this. So I'm just, like I said, I will keep you guys up to date on what's going on in this trial. So the jury has heard from over 34 different witnesses since May. Ex-girlfriends, former employees, male escorts, and federal agents. So, okay, it says he's 55. His birthday hasn't came, but this is year 56 for him. And I want to switch over to Law and Crime YouTube channel. I think they cover it the best. So I'm going to go over there now and let you all hear and see some of what was breaking on that YouTube channel. Again, this is the Law and Crime Network, Fair Use YouTube. So let's come here because they did have an actual update while they were on. Here we go in the partial verdict.
Lease with respect to transportation to engage in prostitution. This is just my perspective. Now, have an update from court. Mark Agnifilo, Sean Combs' defense attorney, says, we're not at that point yet. I'm not saying we wouldn't be at the point on Thursday, July 3rd, or Monday. Let's wait and see. I'm putting stock in that they have reached verdicts on 4 counts. The judge says, I'm going with that, but I may give more later. The judge says, I could tell them that they could return on July 3rd. We could arrange that. What do the parties think? Prosecutor Maureen Comey says, we'd like to give them the option to deliberate on the 3rd. This is something that we were talking about as well, because in the Southern District of New York, that is a court holiday, but this is an unusual circumstance. Agnifilo says, 1 second, Your Honor. Judge says yes. Agnifilo comes back. Our preference is that you don't tell them now about Thursday. The downside is that the jurors might feel rushed to reach a verdict to avoid the Thursday issue. Let them deliberate tomorrow. You could ask at the end of tomorrow. The judge says, so the defense would have no objection to them deliberating on July 3rd. Agnifilo says, no objection if they want to. Judge says, okay, let's bring out our jury. Now, that is really interesting, Safa. I have to agree with the defense there, right? Don't tell them they have the option or that they're debating whether to come back on Thursday. Why even bring that up now? Just let them continue to deliberate. That was a good point by the defense, right?
Yes, it definitely was. And I think what the defense is essentially trying to do here is give them as much time as they need to deliberate. You don't want them to rush and say, well, fine, we've got to reach a verdict. And then it backfires because they come back on a guilty verdict on the top count. So very favorable, at least, from the defense aspect, wanting to.
Yeah, that's good on the defense part as well. You definitely don't want people rushing to a guilty verdict, or they could rush to a not guilty just so they could be at the barbecue on Friday, July 4th. I'm just saying, so it could go either way, but I see where the defense is coming from, not to rush, because you think it's easier to probably just say, okay, guilty, guilty, without actually combing through everything to try and get a possible benefit of the doubt and get a not guilty. Well, let's continue.
Slow it down, giving them the time, and then maybe they might also change their opinion on some other things, and we don't know. It seems like they've come to a unanimous verdict on the other counts 2 through 5, but yes, most definitely.
The jury has entered the courtroom, so we're going to find out what is happening next. Okay, Bradford, over to you. Got questions coming in. LaRob Show asks, quick question for the panel. Does this mean we'll get a full verdict tonight in the Diddy trial, or could count one be pushed to tomorrow? I mean, if they go back tonight, chances they come back with a verdict? Oh, Bradford, I think we're working on getting your sound up. I think you muted yourself, Bradford. We got you back. Can you? All right, we'll work on getting Bradford. Bradford,
I got you.
Gotcha.
So,
okay, so if they go back, chances they'll come back with a verdict on racketeering conspiracy.
Yeah, I hate night verdicts. So anytime that a jury is kept overnight, anytime a jury is rushed, that they want to go home, go to sleep, and the judges keep deliberating, it's the worst. So my preference would be exactly what the defense did, is say, hey, let's slow it down here. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Bring them back in. It's 5:18. Send them home for the night. Let them think about it. It could be tomorrow. One guy comes in and says, you know what? I was thinking about count 3. I don't know if I can do it anymore. But that usually doesn't happen. It seems like they've reached verdicts on those 4, and that one count is going to be the one that they decide. I don't think it's going to be decided tonight, because I think they're going to go home. And I don't think this is the type of judge, and I've been in front of judges that'll say, let's go to 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. This is not that judge. So I don't believe there's going to be any kind of verdict on that count tonight. And I think tomorrow they're going to go back, they'll start fresh, and they'll see if they can reach something tomorrow. But I think it's going to be difficult. I think that people have dug their heels in, and when individuals start digging their heels in and there's more than one, that's when you truly can get a hung jury. When there's one, all the rest just beat up on that one, and then that guy usually ends up turning.
Yep, and we don't know what the split is. Everybody's watching this right now. All eyes are on that federal courtroom in downtown New York. We have a ton of people watching us right now on the live stream. Thank you so much for your incredible support. Thank you so much for continuing to come to us on Law and Crime as we cover this in real time. And by the way, there is an update. The judge says, he's speaking to the jury, I ask you to return to the jury room. If you decide you're done for the day, send me another note and I'll bring you back out to end the day. The jurors leave. Judge says everyone can go back to doing what they were doing. We may get a note in like 10 minutes from the jury and be like, we're exhausted. We're going home. We'll decide on racketeering tomorrow, if we decide. Let me bring in Law and Crime's Sierra Gillespie, who is outside that courthouse right now. Sierra, great to see you. What is the scene like outside? News of a potential verdict. We were wondering if the crowd would gather, if people would show up. What are you seeing?
Yeah, Jesse, a crowd definitely gathered. I do want to shout out Law and Crime because I believe we were one of the first. We already happened to be live on air and announced 2 through 5, there was a verdict reached and questionable about count number 1. So we're on air as this is happening. All of a sudden, a crowd is forming behind me at the courthouse here. I don't know how well you can see. Also, let me note that it is raining. For a time, it was pouring down rain. So there's so many umbrellas, people getting hit, water falling all over people. The scene is chaos. I will say it's not as big as I initially would have thought, simply because, first of all, it was so hot out today. Then it started to pour rain, and I don't know if people were really excited about the prospect of standing in pouring rain. However, we have seen a crowd gathering outside of the courthouse. Mics are set up in the event of any sort of press conference. There were people shouting. There were people who are opposed to Diddy, people who are for Diddy. I mean, there is definitely a crowd here, and you can feel it in the air. When there's a verdict, you can almost just feel it.
So, first of all, to echo what you were saying, I just got word. We are the #1 Diddy trial coverage live stream that's happening right now on YouTube. So, incredible. Again, we have the best viewers. Thank you so much. This is a super chat question that came in from Melissa A. Sierra. I'm going to answer it. I'm going to throw it to you too. So first of all, Melissa A., thank you so much for this great question. How can they have a verdict on counts 2 through 5, but not on 1? That's confusing. Please explain. This is my take, okay? Each one of these charges is separate consideration. They each have their own elements. They could easily say, okay, Sean Combs, I think he transported men and Jane and Cassie across state lines for the purposes of sex work, okay? That's transportation to engage in prostitution. You don't need force, fraud, or coercion. Sex trafficking. Okay, let's talk about force, fraud, and coercion. We believe, let's say I was talking before, I think that he might be found guilty with respect to Cassie. We think that he used those methods to induce her on multiple locations to engage in freak-offs. Maybe Jane, not necessarily so much. These are separate determinations. Racketeering conspiracy is multiple elements. Yes, there are underlying crimes for racketeering conspiracy that include sex trafficking, that include transportation to engage in prostitution. And yes, as we talk about underlying predicate crimes, the jury could say, I think Diddy engaged in sex trafficking. I think he engaged in transportation to engage in prostitution. I think the prosecution has proven at least 2 underlying crimes. But what we have to remember is there is another part of racketeering conspiracy that may be causing them a holdup. Was Sean Combs the leader of a criminal organization, a criminal enterprise? Was there a criminal enterprise? Was there a conspiracy? Was there a criminal agreement to further a pattern of illegal activity? Were the assistants, were the bodyguards, was everybody knowing what was going on? Was there a common purpose? I'm not surprised, Sierra. I'm not surprised if they have come to a decision on 2 and 5 and they're hung up on racketeering, because that's its whole separate animal, right?
I couldn't agree with you more, Jesse. I mean, I guess I understand why some people may be confused. He's on trial. Is it either guilty or not guilty or a hung jury? But we've seen this even most recently in the Harvey Weinstein case. You know, we saw that there was a hung jury. It's a mixed verdict or a split verdict, what we call it. When there are multiple charges, you can be found not guilty of one, guilty of another, hung on another. That is something that is completely possible. It is confusing, though. And to me, I understand it. To your point, Jesse, they probably went through on the verdict forms and we're looking, okay, he's charged with, racketeering conspiracy. Perhaps we'll wait until the end to go back to that one because there's a lot to go through. What about transportation to engage in prostitution? Counts 2 through 5. They probably went through all of those, were able to agree a bit easier. And then to everything you just said, it's the racketeering conspiracy that is the most intense. It's the most confusing, especially when you bring in the predicate crimes when we're talking.
Yeah, I'm going to stop it there. Shout out to Law and Crime Network on YouTube. They are covering it, I think, the best every day. And, they're on for this video was 9 hours, 32 minutes. They start in the morning and go to the afternoon. And yeah, the racketeering thing is the hardest to prove because I still don't think that he's guilty of a criminal enterprise. Like I said, Bad Boy Records, which his parent company was, I think, Atlantic Records. And then, so, that's the distributor. You got Sean John, the Ciroc alcohol. I think the tequila was called De Leon or something like that. And so those are just some of the businesses. He probably got other LLCs. So, I mean, if that's what it is, then it would have to be more than him who gets convicted. Is that one guy on trial and that's it? If it's a criminal enterprise like the mafia, I can see, like I said, where you would struggle to say that he's guilty of the whole racketeering because it's just him. And yeah, you got the employees, but you'd have to bring a lot more of them under fire to see what they were involved in to say that they involved in criminal conduct. People who've been hired there over time at Bad Boy Records as interns. If that's the case, then you got to look at the artists because the artists get signed. The artists are technically employees of Bad Boy Records as well. And he's had Mary J. Blige as an employee, all of this. So that's so much and so much more to comb through. That's the only thing I wouldn't say it would take them into next week saying, well, because you just don't have enough to go on to really go through the whole Bad Boy roster, the music artists, customer service, managers, all of that to try and prove racketeering. That would take us more into the summer and more names would have to be called. It just, right, if they're trying, I think that comes back as a not guilty and they get it done by July 3rd. So we got another 48 hours and then they at the barbecue on Friday, July 4th. That's all I'm saying. That's kind of hard. Like a criminal enterprise, I don't see that with racketeering and RICO. We'd have heard about a lot more names by now and other people involved if this is what it was, being a criminal enterprise, and we probably would have seen a lot more arrests before May. It's just a lot of people getting busted, but we didn't see that. So yeah, I don't see that as a guilty with the racketeering at this point for that particular count. Obviously, they got two, three, four, and five. I think those might be a combination of guilty and not guilty. But I don't see Diddy getting life in prison because I don't think they can convict on that racketeering. And so we'll see. Like I said, this is year 56 of life for him. So with the racketeering, which I think is going to be not guilty, I don't know what two, three, four, and five carry, but I don't know, maybe 10 years or less, and then he'd be out before he's 70 years old. That's not that bad for someone his age. Because I think that's the most that they can charge. Let me go a little bit farther into the video before I end it, because they had someone asking questions about what's the charge they could get. I'm trying to see. What's the most they could get? Let me see here.
Woman who claims
in terms.
Let me see if I can find
very,
it.
very close, especially since they sex trafficking as
suggestive. Do you think that after being
saying you're not making any sense, you're not making any sense, you got the 4th of July.
He's facing up to 10 years on that charge.
Here we go.
And so ultimately, if he were to just be convicted of that charge, the judge can sentence him up to 10 years. So he's got the most exposure with the RICO, which that is.
Let me rewind it back. This is the last part I want to get to so you all can see. You take the RICO out and the racketeering, which, like I said, I think would be a not guilty. The most he can get charged, someone asks a question. So I'm going to rewind it back real quick. And then we'll get up out of here. Should be right here.
think we're getting a verdict tomorrow? You think we're getting a verdict on racketeering before the holiday weekend?
I definitely think we're getting a verdict tomorrow, and particularly before the holiday weekend. This is 4th of July weekend. These jurors have been sitting on this case for quite some time. They want to go home. They want to be done with this. So I do expect that we're going to get a verdict tomorrow.
And Bradford, you don't see let me ask you a question. We got a question about this Allen charge. In your experience, do they give multiple Allen charges or modified Allen charges? If they come back and say, hey, listen, we still can't come to a decision, does the judge say, hey, go back one more time? Or is that overly suggestive? Do you think that after being told to go back to deliberate, they are going to still be at an impasse? Or do you think they'll eventually come to a verdict?
I think they're still going to be in an impasse just because it feels like there are more than one juror on that charge that is saying either guilty or not guilty. So, like I said, often if there's one holdout, usually they get beat up enough. I mean, I just had a trial in San Francisco, a murder case in San Francisco, where there was one holdout. And the guy was great. I mean, he held out for like 6 days, very strong guy, 7 days. He would come out, he's crying, he's upset. Everyone was upset. They came back in dozens of times. The foreman came back in and said, this one guy, he's a conspiracy theorist. We can't agree with this guy. And he held out for the 7 days. And right before they came with the verdict, the foreman came back in and said, remember when I said he was a conspiracy theorist? We couldn't agree with him. He's a good guy. We like him now. And then they came back with a guilty verdict on 2nd degree instead of 1st degree, which is okay. It's never okay to get a guilty verdict, but it was okay in that case. And, that's what happens when you have one holdout. You got people just beating on you every day saying, you're not making any sense. You're not making any sense. You got the 4th of July around the corner. People are saying, I got to pick up my kid. I got to do this. And they're blaming you. And what happens is you have to be such a strong personality. You have to be almost a Superman or Superwoman to withstand those slings and arrows of guilt or not guilt, and hold your ground that a decision is not met. Now, when there's two or three, you guys form like a little clan, and you're like you find comfort in each other. So my guess is there's at least two or three here that are saying either guilty or not guilty, and they're going to find comfort in each other. And my hope is that they stand strong, whatever their verdict is, they stand strong on that verdict. They've heard all the evidence, they've seen everything they need to see. And it's whether or not the others can beat them up enough to say, hey, listen, we all want to go home, and let's just do this. But I don't think they come
Right.
to a verdict on that charge.
Okay, Safa, final question of the night. This is a super chat question from We Will Dance Again. Thank you so much. How much time can he get for the Mann Act guilty verdict? So transportation to engage in prostitution. How much time can he get for that alone?
He's facing up to 10 years on that charge. And so ultimately, if he were to just be convicted of that charge, the judge can sentence him up to 10 years. So he's got the most exposure with the RICO, which that is the crucial charge, the charge that he has the most to lose. But with the Mann Act, he's looking at 10.
And what's a minimum that he might be looking at? If you know.
So there's no minimum, but right now, so he's been in custody for quite some time. Not only that, but we have to look at the sentencing guidelines and where he would fall at with respect to those guidelines. Could the judge give him 5 years? Sure.
Yeah.
8? Sure. Could the judge give him time served? In theory, yes. Will the judge do that? It's up to him.
Safa Robinson Ferrer, Bradford Cohen, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Yeah, I want you all to hear that last part about the 10 years and what he can get sentenced to. It's up to the judge. But I think, like I said, we're going to hear something tomorrow about Thursday. We shall see. The jurors, hopefully they're not at home. Well, they're not at home, but in the hotel looking at other stories and getting other influences that might affect their decision, of guilty or not guilty. But one can only dream, what's in your mind already. You already formed your opinion in terms of, what your verdict would be. And like the other lawyer said, it might be 2 or 3 that are undecided. It's 12. It's 4 women, 8 men that's deciding the verdict. 4 women, 8 men. So I don't know if it may be all women that are held up, or it's all men, or it's 2 women and 1 man. We don't know. So I'll definitely have another video once an official verdict is reached on the racketeering and the court case is over. But for now, like you all, I am waiting. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Like and share this video. The channel is Facts or Feelings, all one word, no spaces. Put that in the YouTube search, Facts or Feelings, and my channel comes right up. And send any topics or other videos besides Diddy that you would want me to review, talk about in the future, to my YouTube email, which is in the description of this video, down in the description. That is cregier.mj@gmail.com. That's CREGIER.mj@gmail.com. That's it for now. We're waiting on a guilty or not guilty. What do you guys think down in the comments below? Free Diddy, or should he get 10 years? Should he get convicted of the racketeering as well? Let me know what you guys think. It's definitely a big deal at this point with everyone that tunes in, especially to this Law and Crime Network YouTube channel. Every day, people, they live stream. They got so many people in the chat. He's a very big celebrity, A-list celebrity, I'll even say. And that's why this is so major in terms of if he can get all the way off, or if he does some jail time and how much. So that's where we're at with it. I am out, and I will be back. And also stay cool from this heat wherever you're at. I'm out.